You are listening to The Thought Leaders Show with the world's cutting-edge, hottest innovators, influencers, and impact makers today. If you are looking for inspiration and motivation, listen in. Welcome to The Thought Leaders Show. Now, here's your host.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Vince Davis. Vince is an international best-selling author, and he helps parents and families battle child protective services throughout the country. He is the host of the national talk radio show, Get Your Kids Back Now. He has a passion for keeping parents with their children and suing social workers when they violate your constitutional rights. Vince is a 30-year trial attorney, graduate of the world-famous Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College, graduate of the prestigious Trial Skills Schools, Trojan Horse Method, and Trojan Horse Mastery. He is the owner of his 35-person law firm, the law offices of Vincent W. Davis and Associates, a California-based law firm which is expanding nationwide. He is a father and a widower. He loves to travel and meet people, especially people who need his help. Welcome, Vince.
Good morning, Tammy. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really, really excited to talk to you about this topic because parents need you. Can you tell us more about the people you help?
Certainly. I represent people whose children or children of the family have been taken away by government agents known as Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services goes by different names in different states and different counties within a state. But they're basically the social worker who comes out, tries to take the child away from you because of alleged abuse or abuse by you on the child. And those are the people that I help. I help them get the children back because foster care, in my opinion, is not a good place for the children to be.
So why in the world would a social worker come into a home and take children away unless they find that there is a real harm to the child? Is there any motivation for them to take children away from their parents?
Yes, in my opinion, the social workers are sometimes out trying to save the world, trying to save children from perceived abuse. And honestly, sometimes they're right, and a lot of times they're wrong. There is an incentive, and I don't even think the field social workers know this, but there's a financial incentive for taking children away from parents. The federal government pays states and counties to provide services and to help reunify children with their families, and you can't make that type of money unless you've taken away the child as a predicate.
So there's actually federal guidelines that motivate states to say, yes, let's take these children away from their parents. What are some of the big reasons why people can't get their children back, even if they're found not to have really been in a situation where their children are in a harmful situation?
One of the main reasons, I think, is just a way of doing business. A lot of times I get the feelings that judges believe that social workers, are doing their best, doing God's work, protecting children. And, sometimes I get the feeling that it's hard for a judge to believe that a social worker would lie or exaggerate the truth in reports and in testimony. But I have personally seen many, many instances where a social worker has exaggerated or not telling the truth. As a matter of fact, I did a case about a year ago where the social worker in a deposition, I was videotaping her deposition, where she admitted to lying under penalty of perjury on more than one occasion.
And what was that motivation for her?
She never would tell me that. She basically fell on the sword for about 5 other social workers that were above her, and she took the blame for what went wrong. So during the case, I believe she was promoted to a supervisor, and she's still working in the field for the County of Los Angeles right now. So I don't know what her motivation was. I can only guess and speculate, and I speculate that it was to protect those above her in the lawsuit.
Wow. I know, and I bet this happens to a lot of people, but I know personally, I live in Florida, and I remember I had actually had surgery, and my children at the time were 4, 5, and about 14. And one day I had just had surgery, gotten home. My house was surrounded by children's protective services. And they like swarmed in and they proceeded to tell me that my children had been running around unsupervised in dirty diapers. And remember, my children were 4 or 5 years old. And I'm like, I think you have the wrong house, because my children don't wear diapers because they're older. And these people insisted that it was my house. And of course my children were right there, and they could see them and see that they were, perfectly clothed, and of course a lot older than anybody in diapers. So that is actually a personal experience. So I know the fear and the dread of having people just show up and literally surround the house and claim that you're an unfit parent. Do you find that the people who come to you, is that the kind of horror story that they come with, that one day something happened and they were accused of something?
Yes. In most states, when the social worker shows up, not only do they show up in mass, but they also bring the police with them. And the police, they have guns and badges, and they try to enforce the law. And typically, in most situations, the police has to do whatever the social worker requests. Now, I've been involved in some cases where police officers have refused to do what social workers have asked. For example, social worker says, "Take the child. We're taking the child with us," and the police have said, "No, we're not doing that. There's nothing wrong here. We don't see any abuse." But then a lot of times, the police, they just do what the social worker says, and they take the child away. I just finished a case for a gentleman, and after it took months and many hearings, we did a trial. He was accused of sexual abuse, and it took a very long trial for the judge to decide in the end that the allegations made by the social worker and by the alleged victim, who was now an adult, were just not credible. And the judge, what seemed like a 45-minute ruling, gave a ruling from the bench and explained exactly why the witnesses were not credible. But this gentleman had been separated from his child probably about, I want to say maybe about 8 to 10 months. I don't remember the exact dates, and he had been treated basically like a criminal. He had visitation with his child 2 times a week. That usually happened only 1 time a week, and it was only for an hour. So, parents, when they get these children taken away, they just go through hell, and they're treated like criminals.
So we all are thinking that, gee, aren't we innocent until proven guilty? And it sounds like in these particular cases, it's like you're guilty until you're proven innocent. So things don't always appear to be what they are on the outside. So when you step in to a case, you have a very unique law practice. Are there a lot of attorneys who practice in child protective services law?
No, they're not. And I practice in one of the largest counties in the country, Los Angeles County. Well, at least that's where my office is. I actually practice all over, and especially all over California. But what happens is that you are given, if you can't afford an attorney, you are given a court-appointed attorney who, in a lot of cases, is overworked and underpaid. And then there's a small group, usually of former court-appointed attorneys, and that's what the class I fall under, who take on these cases privately. And, we handle cases as they come in, as people hire us, and we go out and fight, and we try to get the children back. And whether that works or not, we consider suing social workers in the federal courts for violations of civil rights.
So you actually will go all the way to the federal courts to help people get their kids back. And what else can happen for people besides getting their kids back? Is there any recourse that you have with the government or these social workers?
Yes, if you sue a social worker and the county or the state for violation of your civil rights, you can be awarded monetary damages. And there are generally three ways this happens in juvenile cases. Number one, the social worker comes and takes your child without a warrant or court order. And in this country, under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, it forbids unreasonable searches and seizures. You just cannot come and take somebody's child unless you have a court order or a warrant, or there's an exigent circumstance, basically an emergency. And generally, that's something where the social worker sees that you're abusing the child, and the social worker just needs to get the child out of that situation. Those are very rare circumstances, by the way. So generally, a social worker needs a court order or a warrant. And in a lot of places, and a lot of times, that's just not done. So that's a Fourth Amendment violation you can sue on. The second way you can sue a social worker is if the social worker actually exaggerates or lies in reports under penalty of perjury to the judge in juvenile court. Now, the judge in juvenile court is making decisions based upon what he or she is reading from the social worker. So if the social worker kind of, exaggerates the truth, you could lose your child for a period of time. And if that happens, you also have a right to sue the social worker for lying under oath. I've seen social workers lie under oath on the witness stand. I've seen social workers lie under oath in submitting reports. So you have that type of lawsuit against the social worker. The third way you can sue a social worker generally is if your child is put into foster care, and then while in foster care, the child is abused. I've seen many cases where the child has been in foster care, sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally and mentally tortured. Because remember, these people that are foster parents, they don't know your child. They're just strangers. And sometimes these children are put into situations where there's other foster children in the home who may have certain propensities towards violence, and they take that violence out on your child while your child's in foster care. So those are generally the three ways that we represent people when we sue social workers and county and state agencies.
Oh my goodness, it's just it's such an emotional thing, and because children are so helpless to begin with, and for someone to come and take them from everything they know into an unknown environment. And I know here in Florida, often there are some unscrupulous people who actually will report people. Like, let's say it's a divorce case or something, and relatives get involved. They'll report people to the children's services to cause trouble. I've seen that happen quite a bit. Is there, when people do that false reporting, would you be able to take them to court for that type of abusing the system situation?
Yes, you can. However, it's a little bit more difficult. Sometimes people will make false reports against you, and they're technically their identity is protected. But sometimes it's just the ex-spouse who's trying to gain an advantage. I know of a case, it goes several years back in Sacramento County in California, where the mother and father were involved in a bitter custody battle and they were getting divorced. One of the mother's best friends was a social worker, a supervisor with CPS in Sacramento. Well, a false report was called in. The children were taken away from the father, and it was investigated by a social worker. The social worker wrote a report that was very favorable to the father and very unfavorable to the mother. Allegedly, what happened was the supervisor got involved, who was the friend of the mother's, tore up the report and assigned a new social worker. And that social worker, of course, substantiated all of the damages, all of the charges of physical and or sexual abuse. Well, all of that was false. In the end, the father ended up suing the county and the social workers, and I think the settlement was $11 million. And the workers that were involved in that basically false case against this father, they were not reprimanded. And at the time, years ago, I don't know if it's still true, they were still working for the county of Sacramento, still, working on cases for CPS.
That's just horrifying to think that people can, basically lie and try to ruin somebody's life. And all the money in the world doesn't take back all of that emotional trauma for both the parents and the children involved. Tell me a little bit more about your national radio show, Get Your Kids Back Now. Is that a live show? How does it work?
Yes, it's a live show. It's on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. It's through Blog Talk Radio. And I get on the radio. I take calls from people, and usually they're family and parents who want to tell their story or ask me questions. And the show is an hour long. It goes by so fast. I've gotten many requests to make it 90 minutes or even 2 hours long because I can only take a few calls when somebody's trying to tell their story. And it's gaining a lot of popularity, a lot of notoriety, because it's the first show, and I really didn't think about this until you said the intro today. It's really, I'm the first person who's actually taking the side of the parents and the family, trying to get kids back from Child Protective Services. Usually people that get all the notoriety are the people that are, quote-unquote, protecting kids in this system. And I'm just a big advocate of keeping families together. So that's what
you definitely are needed because, again, I've personally witnessed situations where the social worker was trying to find any little thing to like create trouble for different people I've known. And I was there as an advocate for the child in a sense because I was protecting the child. And so I was watching the parent situation very closely. And I knew that the woman in question was trying to do the best that she could do with what she had. And she took care of her child, fed, clothed, and housed him. And I knew that was happening because I was helping to make sure that there was a place to live and food and clothing and all those things. So I knew the social worker was just really off base in pushing on this one particular person. And you also are an international best-selling author, and you recently spoke at the Entrepreneurial Students Club at Harvard Faculty Club for the Business Expert Forum, and you have an international best-selling book. What is your book?
The title of the book is called The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. And I actually wrote that book at the request of a client who told me, you know what, Vince, you should write all of this stuff down in a book and put it out there so parents can have access to it. And the book is sold on Amazon, but I basically give that book away. I didn't write the book for judges and lawyers. I wrote the book for parents and for relatives who are new to the CPS system so that they can have an idea. If they can't afford to hire a good private lawyer, it might be unlikely that their court appointed attorney will explain the system to them. They just don't have enough time. They're overworked and underpaid. And this book really explains the overview of the system as it's put forth in California. And it's very similar to every state because all of the states are regulated by the federal government and the regulations from the Department of Health and Human Services. So it gives a good overview. But it's something that I think people that are involved in this system need to know.
So it's called The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. And of course, CPS stands for Child Protective Services. So wherever you are at, you can find out the name that your state, city, or county calls your Child Protective Services, because that's so important. And I think that you're right on target. Whoever told you to write that book for the average ordinary parent was right on, because when we're out there in the real world, I'm a parent. I've had children and now I'm a grandmother, and my sons have dated women with single moms, and so I've seen all kinds of people come through my life. And one of the things that is really certain is that when it comes to legal issues, the average person, they have no clue. They don't know how to turn. And if they don't have any money, they have to rely on those court appointed people. And you're really right. They don't tell you anything. I've seen that too, where people are just kind of like, everyone has their eyes glazed over because they don't really understand. And when it comes to children and parents especially, there's that fear that you're helpless, that there is no one to help you, because you think the social worker is there to help you, you think the police officer is there to help you, but then you find out, no, they're the ones that are probably going to take your child away from you. You are planning on, or you are expanding nationwide. So you're currently headquartered in California, but you're expanding nationwide. So what will that look like?
Well, my goal is to have a network and a firm of attorneys that have the same quality of training, same quality of representation for clients. And, it's needed in every state, in every county in our country. And, one of the most important things people focus on is, what does the law say? What does the law say? And in my opinion, that's probably not as important as to how effective an attorney your lawyer is inside the courtroom. That has to do more with trial skills than what the law is. Generally everyone knows the law, or at least the judge knows the law, or believes he or she does know the law. And there's very little you're going to do quoting laws to judges. They already have probably their mind made up as to what their understanding of the law is. So what you have to really focus on is persuasion, trial techniques, to convince a judge that, notwithstanding his or her understanding of what the law is, but how to convince them that this is the decision that must be made in this case. And you can only do that with trial skills and with witnesses and with evidence like documents and pictures and videos. So that's really my focus. I want to try to make it a uniform training and skill. It's like, I hate to say McDonald's, but I get a McDonald's here or in Florida, it's going to be the same.
Right.
I want to make sure that if you get me here in California and you hire someone in Florida that's associated with me, or I fly down to Florida to do the case myself, that you're getting the same quality, the same type of attorney. And one of the biggest problems of attorneys is people don't trust attorneys. I mean, we probably rank right above used car salesmen. And so in order to try to make that go away, if people offer high quality representation for these parents, people will begin to see that it's something that's worthwhile, and it's something that you can do to battle the government, battle these social workers inside the juvenile courts, in the federal courts.
So you are an advocate for these parents. Is there any big misconceptions that people might have about the fact that so they're able to hire the attorney, they get their attorney, and they go to court? Are there any things that people have a misconception about related to how an attorney works for them?
Yes, the biggest misconception is all we have to do is wave the magic wand, smile at the judge, and we should win the case. Each case takes a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of strategy. And each case is different. So they're not cookie cutters. You know, a lot of people think, well, you can do this by just doing this and this and this. And I have clients, who aren't attorneys, who have read stuff on the internet and tell me, well, this case should be easy. All you have to do is, and I'm thinking to myself, no, that's not all you have to do. There's a lot more to it. A client, that case I told you about that I just won, he said to me, you know what? I should have learned early on just to trust you and do what you advise. He said, I didn't do that, and that made this process a lot harder. He's an educated guy, college degree, professional, white collar professional. He thought he knew what we should be doing in court during the trial. Now, people just think that because, hey, it's their life, it's their family. But if you really want to hire a professional to come do something for you, let the professional do it. That's what he or she is trained to do.
That makes perfect sense to me. And because of television, we've all watched Matlock and Perry Mason. So we say it's like, well, yeah, it's so easy because, Law and Order, we just think that everything is like instant and easy. And I think that you're really right. If you think about it, you've been doing this for more than 30 years. So think about that on a day-to-day experience level. And then your client, they've only been in it a matter of hours of trying,
right.
And they're in it from this emotional place. It's for them, it's a kind of a life or death situation in terms of this is my child, this is my life, this is everything. And I would just think that it would be a lot smarter to trust somebody who does this day in and day out, who studies the law, who has, done this type of thing over and over again and actually knows how the system works. Because I don't think most of us really understand how all these things work. Because I would always think on the side of, oh, they're trying to help me. They're trying to protect me. They're trying to protect the children. But like you said, oftentimes these children get put into serious situations because of being taken away from their parents or unscrupulous people who just make stuff up because it's so
right.
easy to tell lies in the world today and harm other people. So I'm really glad that you're helping people with their civil rights and that you have chosen children to be an advocate for them and their parents so that families can, stay together and everything. So if somebody wanted to get more information from you, where would they go?
They can go to my website. It's www.fightchildprotectiveservices.com, fightchildprotectiveservices.com, or they could call us and get a free consultation. Our toll-free number is 888-888-6582. That's 888-888-6582.
So 888-888-6582. That's really wonderful. Well, Vince, thank you again for being an advocate for our children and for families. I'm really happy to hear that there is someone out there like you. And congratulations on your Saturday show on Blog Talk Radio. Get your kids back now. And on your international best-selling book, The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. Sounds like you're really busy, but you're really busy doing all the right things. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy, for having me. It was a pleasure being on your show.
Thank you. Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to the Thought Leaders Show. To get all past shows and to get all future shows, go to thoughtleadersshow.com.